If you go back to my reviews of the Gran Turismo games, you'll notice that I'd never compared them to Forza Motorsport. Well, that's because back then I didn't own an Xbox, nor have I even played them before. By the early 2000s, simulation racing was already established, and there was a huge following for the genre, especially on consoles. Almost every system package I see for sale, old or new, usually has a sim racer included. Microsoft already had a few races up their sleeve, including RalliSport Challenge, Project Gotham Racing, and Midtown Madness 3, to name a few. These are solid titles for the Xbox, and if you want to buy them now, they're dirt cheap. However, none of these were simulation races. There were plenty of third-party ones like Touring Car Race Driver, but nothing exclusive to the original Xbox. But then at E3 2004, when Halo 2 was all the rage, Peter Moore officially announced Forza Motorsport. Italian for power, it was instantly touted as a direct competitor to Sony's Gran Turismo series, with the fourth one awaiting release. The game was developed by Turn 10 Studios, who were formed in 2001 with 20 employees, and it was their first game together. After 2.5 years of development, they created an ultra-realistic simulator, the kind of thing that would make the difficulty of Richard Burns' Rally look like World of Illusion. Okay, maybe not that hard, but that wasn't their biggest priority. They wanted the game's excitement to come in the form of collecting and creating. The first thing Ken Lobb, who was manager of Microsoft Studio RX back then, was excited by how giant this game was, how important the online interactivity was, and programmer Garrett Young said that car customization helped stand out from the rest of the other sim racers on the market, allowing you to create unique vehicle designs for other players to compete against. Forza Motorsport was released worldwide on May 2005, only half a year before the Xbox 360. Looking at the release date, and with all other great Xbox exclusive races solidified, I think the first Forza Motorsport should have been a launch title for the 360, or at least release a graphical enhancement of the original Xbox title. I suppose that's what Forza Motorsport 2 is for. Fortunately, you can play it on your 360 anyway, and they make a new Forza game every year. I wonder how they keep that pace after years of technological advancement. But if there's anything that the sequels implement or improve on, I'll point them out when I review them in the future. Here, I'll be reviewing Forza Motorsport 1 from the perspective that it's the first one I played, since this is one of my biggest requests for literally years, and want to start with where it all began. Like most simulation races, once you enter career mode, you're given a set number of credits and select the region of cars to choose from: Asia, Europe, and North America. Although programmer Garrett Young says that the region you select will make certain cars cheaper, from what I can tell, whatever you choose doesn't affect the career as a whole, apart from which event you'll do first. For reasons I'll get to. The biggest positive right off the bat is that there are no license tests. In fact, the closest you can get to these tests are the autocross stages. Even then, they're only optional, and they aren't anywhere near as tedious as the ones in Gran Turismo. I might have exaggerated them in the past, but I'm the kind of guy that just wants to select a car and race. Learn how the mechanics work in a racing situation. Scrolling through the events is easy, ranging from amateur, professional, championship, and endurance, similar to Gran Turismo 3. Each set of events are categorized by power levels, drivetrain, manufacturer, nationality, and they increase in laps, speed, and difficulty as you progress through the levels. Obviously, nothing licensed, but the diversity is there. It's completely straightforward, and there's almost never two of the same thing, apart from a few point A to B races, which I'll get to. I love it. It might not look like much at first, but it took me 11.5 hours just to unlock the endurance events. Also, just a minor thing, if there's an event you want to race on but the car you've currently selected doesn't qualify, it will shortcut you to the full list of cars in your garage that do qualify. It's probably saved me over an hour of total gameplay, not having to painstakingly jump back and forth through menus, trying to find the right car for a specific event. On top of career mode, you've got other arcade-based modes, including free run, where you have a broader access to cars and tracks right off the bat, split screen multiplayer, but the biggest one that I can only be brief about because you can't use it anymore is the online aspect, which allows you to use your profile from career mode, any vehicle from the garage including fully customizable ones, and race them online, including a category in the event selection which increases your overall progress. Because Forza Motorsport came out the same year as Gran Turismo 4, the most logical thing would be to compare them. But looking at the presentation and the level of content, I think the best comparison would be Gran Turismo 3, which is my favorite racing game of all time. That right there is a huge compliment. It's not glamorous, but it's aged pretty well for the system it came out for. I mean, this is an original Xbox game and it still looks good. It doesn't look as clean as, let's say, Gran Turismo 4. There's no HD option and the frame rate is locked at 30 per second, or 25 if you live in the PAL region. I'm playing this on the Xbox 360 so it looks a bit sharper, although there are a few frame rate drops whenever so many cars are on screen at once, especially on Road Atlanta. The car audio disappears sometimes, it's like they run on electric engines. And the shadow effects, especially on Oval Speedway, can be distracting, or maybe going straight the whole time gives you more to think about, but all of these are just minor nitpicks. Any technical mishaps are more likely to do with the backwards compatibility emulation of the 360, but you're still going to have a fun time playing it this way. The soundtrack was composed by Tom Holkenborg, aka Junkie XL, who is more known for his film work including Mad Max Fury Road, Deadpool, and Batman vs Superman, and is original for the game. For the most part. Some of the songs in the menu are instrumental covers, like Iron Man by Black Sabbath, Frankenstein by the Edgar Winter Group, and LaGrange by ZZ Top. I like it, but it can sound repetitive because there are moments when it plays the same song the whole time I play this game, whether it's in the menu or in the middle of a race. But that's what custom soundtracks are for. Forza Motorsport features a combination of real circuits including Laguna Seca, Road America, Nürburgring, Silverstone, Stuttgart, and even more fictional ones. Not as many tracks as I anticipated, but I can imagine the Nürburgring taking up a lot of space. One thing you might notice is that there are no gravel surfaces, no rally events. Instead, there are point A to B sprint tracks like the Need for Speed series. Some are chunks of the giant Nürburgring, the shipyard, and my favorite, a giant steep hill in Japan. I like that it affects the way you drive, more blind corners, and the weight of the car shifting all over the place. I'm already anticipating you guys ripping on me for using the racing line, but it's a good way to learn the track because it's the first time I'm playing this game. With Gran Turismo, the HUD tells you which gear to be in on a corner and flashes when you need to brake. It's like an invisible racing line. In Forza Motorsport, it's just more visual. And besides, some fictional tracks don't have corner warnings, you know, signs that say 150, 150 before a corner. Why not? It's the only thing about the fictional tracks I don't like, and it's one of the main reasons I kept using the racing line for longer than I anticipated. But eventually you'll know where the corner is, and you'll be rewarded for it. The racing line is one of many driving aids you can customize to your liking, which not only alters the difficulty, but affects how much you earn in a race. Like if you have everything turned on with the easy difficulty, you earn less, like the first Need for Speed Underground. But everything turned off on a harder difficulty, you earn more. Winning a race obviously earns you credits and is affected by position, car rarity, and aforementioned difficulty. The credits you earn add to the ranking where leveling up unlocks either discounts on parts and the occasional special prize car, on top of winning all the single races in an event and championships. However, you can also lose money based on how much damage your car suffered and need to pay for the repairs. Yeah, there's a car damage model in this game, so although you can win driving dirty, the punishment for doing so is part of the paycheck, so it encourages you to drive fair and square. Although by the time I reached just under level 20, I was tempted to be the most hated driver no matter what the cost, literally. Because I noticed that more events I entered have that one standout car that makes the rest of the competition look like they're sleepwalking, and that toughening up was the only way to even the playing field. But what's even more annoying is that while you can have enough credits to buy a fast car, you need to reach a certain level to unlock the option to buy it. I think it's ridiculous because sure, the events to use it won't be open anyway, but what if I want to use it in other game modes like split screen multiplayer? Nope, you can't. And it usually takes longer to reach the level than it is to actually afford it. But at least by the time you reach that level, you would have earned enough credits to afford lots of cars of a higher level off the bat. And therefore, the region you select doesn't really make much of a difference. I'm making it sound like it's tedious, but it isn't. The developer's intention was for the player to get a kick in collecting all the cars as if they were Pokemon. Gotta catch them all. Because the game itself, driving cars, racing opponents, it's a great time. Don't forget that you have to enjoy the journey as well as reaching the destination. And going back to the arcade mode, there are only a few tracks available at first, but they can be unlocked by winning everything currently available to you, and that opens up another set of tracks and cars to choose from, including racing ones. So if you're a casual racing fan and or if you don't have much time to play games, and want to drive fast cars sooner than later, this is a great alternative to do so. According to the back cover, there are over 230 cars, all licensed, which is a lot. Not as many as GT4, which had 700, but in that game, while they're extremely detailed, it puts quantity over quality with their cars. And while there are plenty of good ones, no scratch that, a lot of fantastic ones, there are also a handful I'm not interested in. And it makes the number 700 or 1000 look inflated. Like, do you really plan on driving a Nissan Cube in a Gran Turismo game anytime soon? Maybe in a license test when you have no choice. Forza Motorsport has a higher volume of cars you actually want to drive. Even the first few ones look tempting, and there are manufacturers that aren't in Gran Turismo like Porsche and Ferrari. All cars can be searched through manufacturer, drivetrain, region, etc. and is easy to navigate through. Just make sure you reach a high enough level, because otherwise you can't even look at them. Or if you want, you can modify what you've got and turn that into a racing car. Upgrades can be purchased which improve the stats. For the first few events it isn't necessary, but eventually, as I previously mentioned, opponents won't take prisoner. Just keep in mind that improving the performance changes the car rating, like this Mustang which went from Class B to A, and it looks like something ColourShed Motorsport would approve of. As you can tell, you can customize the visuals too, including paint jobs, vinyls, decals and body kits. It's obvious that Microsoft were capitalizing on the success of the Need for Speed titles. They were in the middle of the import era. Because you need to be precise with where you place the graphics, I wanted to save the effort for the cars I'm most likely to use a lot because I have some creative ideas. I admit, this part took me by surprise. For a 2005 racer, it's incredibly deep, and I especially like that it doesn't cost a single credit to add or change anything. I wish there were vinyls and decal options that were fixed, pre-made or full body, but it makes the game feel like a combination of Gran Turismo and Need for Speed Underground, two of my top 5 racing games. Every car controls differently. You can go around the corner, understeer or oversteer too much, go off the road, and the opponent drivers will easily overtake you. So it definitely feels like a simulation racer no matter what the level of difficulty. Going off the road and slamming into opponents and barriers also affects your time, which I can understand because staying on the track is obviously part of motor racing rules, but it doesn't affect your position, and I initially thought it did. Like if you're off-road enough that it adds 5 seconds to your total time, place first but your opponent driver places second 3 seconds later, he's the winner by default. That would have been a clever way to encourage clean driving, like an optional difficulty spike to earn extra credits. Although staying on the track isn't the hardest part. That would be making sure the opponents don't pit maneuver you. Intentional or not, it seems like whenever you're slowly gaining an advantage, that's the end of your race, so watch yourself. It's why I changed my driving style to be more aggressive. I don't know if there's rubber banding in this game or not. As you can see from the map of the track, the gap between cars is inconsistent even on an oval doing 2 laps. Although it could be because whenever there's a large pile of cars close to each other, not controlled by you, they get tangled up pretty easily. And sometimes if an opponent tries to overtake you, they just spin themselves out. It's pretty funny. But hey, at least opponents recognize one another on the track. And cars can be damaged, so whenever you make serious contact, it affects the performance, which you can also change in the driving aid settings. I actually decided to try and race with everything turned on, then everything turned off, and the differences are apparent as soon as you enter the first corner. So no matter what your driving style is, just keep in mind that it's a simulation racer. You can even teach drivers on how to drive. You do so by driving as quickly and cleanly as possible on these lessons, and the better you drive, the better your protege will drive in races they can do for you if you don't want to. It's similar to the B-Spec mode in Gran Turismo 4, except the way the AI drives is based on how you perform. I don't know how these lessons are judged, but it's handy to have a second driver in the endurance events. Just be aware that they can take a portion of the prize money, and you need to complete all lessons. It can feel tedious doing 3 laps when only one can truly affect the protege's stats. And aside from the endurance events, I drive the other races alone because I like to play this game. There's nothing highly original about Forza Motorsport, but there's a lot of content, it's an Xbox exclusive, and it's easy to pick up, play, and enjoy. Does it still deserve the praise? Yes. This is not only one of the best racing games on the original Xbox, but one of the best original Xbox games. Period. Is it better than Gran Turismo? Well, look at it like this. If I had an Xbox growing up instead of a PlayStation 2, I would think so. But Gran Turismo 3 will always be my favorite racing game. It has a better soundtrack, circuits, and rally gameplay equally as fun as the tarmac. It holds more nostalgic value for me. But I'll admit, there are plenty of aspects to Forza Motorsport that are better than Gran Turismo 3, including the damage model, customization options, and for a while, online gameplay. It comes down to what you grew up with back then. I mean, at the very least, playing Forza Motorsport is an excuse to also play Gran Turismo games again, so win-win. The series has evolved into a staple for every Xbox console, one of Microsoft's most important franchises along with Halo and Gears of War, and has even expanded into open world territory with the Horizon spin-off series. It's hard for me to say precisely at this stage because this is literally the first time I'm playing a Forza game. I grew up with the PlayStation and I didn't know anyone who had an Xbox and this game. Shame really, because I absolutely love it. And I'm really looking forward to what the rest of the series has to offer.